A few years ago, when Hot Wheels Elite had the license to make Ferraris, they were making them for $80 each. Then they lost the Ferrari license, and these days their latest model is the Aston Martin DB10, which, for some reason, they decided to double the price, and it's sitting at about $180 these days. So if that is out of your budget, what else do you have in terms of options? Well, you have the 143 scale Aston Martin DB10 by James Bond Collectibles. However, if you want an Aston Martin DB10 with opening parts, look no further than this. A 136 Aston Martin DB10 by Corgi. A couple months ago I did a review on the Aston Martin DB11, but now I feel it's time we take a look at the Aston Martin DB10. And the coolest thing about the Aston Martin DB10 is that this is a car that was specially created for the 2014 James Bond movie Spectre.
So what's going on, James? They say you're finished.
What do you think?
I think you're just getting started.
Magnificent, isn't she? 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. A few little tricks up her sleeve.
Some people like to call this a concept car. However, a total of 10 of these were made, some of them being stunt cars, making it a limited production car and putting it in the same category as the Lamborghini Reventon, Veneno, Centenario, or Sesto Elemento. So, as I said earlier, you can buy this model by Corgi for anywhere between 25 to 40 euros, which is quite expensive for a 136 scale model car. However, I've put a link in the description where you can actually get this for $13, free shipping from AliExpress in China. Now, that is not eBay, that is AliExpress, which is basically the Chinese equivalent of eBay. So, the thing is, I have ordered in the past from that website, and the only problem that I've had with them is that I'll have to wait a long time to get my stuff. Like, I used to wait for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes even 4 weeks, but then I got my stuff, so pretty reliable. And the seller does not sell it with the box, so that's like the biggest difference. And the company Corgi actually produces this model in a pretty nice James Bond 007 box, but if you're not particularly interested in that box, I'd say you can save a lot of money this way. And Corgi is a company that has also made James Bond's Aston Martin DB5 in the past. And the DB5 was, just like the DB10, also pretty much a movie car because it became very famous through the movie. That was a car in the 1960s. And here I'm showing you a picture where you can see the Aston Martin DB5 next to the Aston Martin DB10, both of them made by Corgi in 136 scale. And you can immediately tell that Corgi really improved in terms of quality. Because, let's face it, the exterior of this car looks fantastic. It's very accurate. I especially love the rims, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's first start by taking a look at the front of the car. So looking at the front of the car, perhaps the only real weakness of this model is that the headlights could have done with a lot more detail. I mean, these are very basic. They're just like silver plastic, basically. However, the rest of the front is actually designed pretty well. I mean, we have an Aston Martin logo in the middle. So even though this is just a 1/36 scale, you can actually see that they put that detail in there. And below is the very impressively created front grille. It almost looks like it's perforated, doesn't it? I think this is a big step up from Corgi's previous Aston Martin DB5 model. Taking a closer look at the car's huge hood, you can also see that it has these crease lines. And if we look even closer, you can see that Corgi even modeled these vents, just like on the real car. Except, of course, that they could have done it a little bit better because it's not as perforated looking as it's supposed to be. But the pattern is still there. From this camera angle, you can also see that the rear haunches are wider than the front of the car. And that's also another element of accuracy that Corgi did. And that's because this car is based on the V8 Vantage. Now on the Aston Martin DB10, the front would open up like this. However, on this model, only the doors open. But what you would see inside is a 4.7-liter naturally aspirated V8 capable of 420 horsepower, which would take the car from 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds. Although in the James Bond movie this car is tuned to reach 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, that is, in 3.2 seconds. In real life it takes almost 4. And here's a look at the car's side profile. The interesting thing about the Aston Martin DB10 is that the entire car body is carbon fiber, while sitting on a bonded aluminum chassis. Haha, I said bonded. As the car's name would suggest, the rims also have 10 spokes. And I find these rims are to be probably the best part about this car because they're so intricately designed. Even though this car is just 1/36 scale, Corgi managed to make sure to include the Aston Martin logo in the center, as well as 5 painted lug nuts surrounding it. This is the kind of detail that you will not get on the slightly smaller 1/43 scale Aston Martin DB10. Corgi even went so far as to design the brake calipers and a very rudimentary brake disc. I mean, it is nothing special, however, I think it is better than nothing. Unfortunately, however, the brake calipers move with the wheels, so yeah, that looks pretty funny. And here's a look at the back of the car. What's interesting is that this license plate here is actually the same as on the movie car in real life. So this is basically James Bond's license plate, DB10 AGB. I assume the A stands for Aston Martin and the GB for Great Britain. Up here you can see an Aston Martin logo at the back. Just like on the front, it's also done pretty well, although it's just a print. And to either side are the taillights. Now these taillights are black instead of red. However, here's a look at the back of the real car, and you can see that even on the real car, they don't look particularly impressive either. The exhaust tips are kept in black and are pretty much part of the rear diffuser and are not separately painted or anything like that. But I'm assuming on the real car, they are also not very prone to sticking out or anything. So next to the front, another detail that you will get on the Hot Wheels Elite, which you will not get here, is that the back on the Hot Wheels Elite will open. Although there's not much to see in there anyway. Now on first glance, the doors of the Aston Martin DB10 open in a regular way. However, they're actually on swan hinges, which means that they're slightly going to lift up when they open. And so I like how Corgi made sure to replicate that on the model as well. Before we move on to the interior, let's just make sure to take a look at what's here. You can see that Corgi did put a little bit of detail on this area here. And this is also the area where my model has like one flaw, which is that it has a little bit of a scratch here on the back. But I guess you cannot avoid these things. At least the front windshield is fine, as you can see right here. Alright, so now let's move on to the passenger side. And inside there's actually not much to see. I mean, you have to keep in mind that this is a 1/36 scale model that I basically bought for $13, so it already has an impressive exterior. Let's not expect also the interior to be fantastic or anything. However, they did put at least accurate details in the sense that this is how the interior of the real car would also look. It's not just a completely made-up interior or anything like that. It's just that it doesn't have that much detail. However, the interior of the real Aston Martin DB10 is also completely black, and there's just a few grey and silver highlights. So it's kind of hard to make it look good and have a lot of detail. Of course, the Hot Wheels Elite has a lot more detail than this, and perhaps the biggest way or the biggest difference that you can tell is that Hot Wheels Elite included over here a little strip of buttons, which are also present on the movie car, as you can see right here. And they basically turn this car into a weapon of James Bond. So those buttons are on the Hot Wheels Elite model, but they're not here. Let's move on to the driver's side. So looking at the driver's side, here's where I want to tell you that I actually did take this car apart and I painted the sides of the steering wheel in gray, just like on the real car. And I also printed out a 2mm by, I think, 1.5mm, but the length was 2mm Aston Martin logo on a sheet of A4 paper. Very carefully cut it, and even more carefully glued it onto the steering wheel so that it now actually bears this logo. And I think it looks a lot better this way because Corgi did not put the logo on the steering wheel. Behind the steering wheel you can see the instrument panel, which contains a single gauge, and Corgi could have given some silver highlighting to the rim of this gauge, but they didn't. And they also did not put any instrument panel sticker on it. The Hot Wheels Elite version obviously has a lot more detail, including stitching. But at least they have sort of pronounced the gauge on the mold of the dashboard, so there's that. And right over here you can see the 6-speed manual. And a final bit of detail is that Corgi also put these patterns on the seats. And since this is a 1/36 scale, the front wheels do not swivel. However, the car rolls pretty well, as was shown earlier. And here's a look at the bottom of the car. You can see that we have a cute little Corgi symbol for the company. And down here it says James Bond Aston Martin DB10. It does not specify the scale, however this is a 1/36 scale car. It's got a few interesting details over here. And back here you can see the rear diffuser. Well guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you liked the review of this 1/36 scale Aston Martin DB10 by Corgi. And I have also reviewed the 1/24 scale Aston Martin DB11 by Motormax in the past, so you're going to find that over here. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out.